Hi, today's October 28th, Wednesday, and I have some inspiring stories from the news for you. Well, of course, I always have good recipes that I can take from the paper: spam and macaroni and cheese. We have a Spanish rice and chicken. That looks good. And we have a couple cookie recipes: Melania Trump's star cookies and Jill Biden's oatmeal cranberry and chocolate chunk cookies. I have kids. I always have to have some cookie recipes. You might be inspired by an article about golf. This is a woman who she lost her dad. No, her grandfather was really into golf. And then she always kind of poo pooed it. But then she tried it and she got into it and she really got obsessed by golf. So it talked a lot about how she just got increasingly obsessed by golf and how really golf, when it's played well, is a form of meditation, a perfect balance between intensity and relaxation. And she talked about the pandemic as a great marination, a time to sit and stew and absorb the important things we ignore when we're always moving so fast. So, some good mindfulness lessons here. An article about how only the wealthiest connoisseurs of wine could be able to buy this wine. And although I don't like the elitist part of that kind of equation, but I do like luxury and quality and studying, like, why is that wine so much better? Why is that specific Bordeaux so fancy? I'm interested in that. What kind of luxuries do you indulge in? There's an article about a candy shop, and for some reason, I'm always interested and inspired by candy places. The original inspiration of my company, All the Hats We Wear, was actually Willy Wonka and his golden ticket. And that's what I first posted on my wall way back, probably 12 years ago, about a company that was so innovative and so creative that it really had no competition at all because it was so unique. And so that always has a special place in my heart. So this company is a candy shop called Sucker and Sweet. It's in Chestnut Hill, Boston. Might be inspired by a woman named Lissy who was just created a company that was sold for $1.3 billion. Excuse me. So that's pretty impressive. And her whole focus is solving a big problem for healthcare, getting patients help after their hospital stay. And it's called CarePort. It's a web-based software company headquartered in Boston, and it streamlines that process. So that's pretty impressive. CarePoint, CarePort Health, 1.3 billion. Wow. Wonder if this has her number. Raytheon has an article about cutting its office space up to 25%. This could be a trend. It doesn't need all the 31 million square feet of space it has for office space, so it's cutting that down by up to 25% of it. So that's pretty huge. And it sees that as a huge savings. It will have people work remotely. The chief executive, Greg Hayes. So this could be the future of big corporations. He says the ability to work remotely with the technology they have without losing productivity is their big focus. We lost a great drummer, a 107-year-old woman named Viola Smith. You can look up on YouTube her videos of her playing the drums with a swing band. She was famous for doing the Snake Charmer song, which is a jazzy arabesque uh, showing her drumming techniques. Interesting story about the founder and CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. Seems like a pretty creative guy. He came under fire for delegating a lot of his big decisions about Twitter to his workers, people that he works with, when he should really be doing it in the eyes of his financiers. But pretty creative guy. I mean, Twitter is valued at $38 billion. This says that Facebook has about 1.8 billion daily users across all its products compared to Twitter's 186 million daily. So that's pretty impressive too, that how much bigger Facebook is than Twitter. He's a billionaire several times over, and he has a large tattoo of an S-shaped integral symbol used in mathematics on his left arm. He likes to wear black t-shirts and hoodies. And he was fired in 2008 as Twitter CEO for leaving work to go to a yoga class. So he's a pretty funky guy. He lives in San Francisco in a mansion-studded Seacliff neighborhood near his office. He also loves minimalism because he was inspired by Steve Jobs. And he only owns a few pieces of furniture, just like Steve Jobs did. Interesting guy. You might be inspired by this article about the age of exaggeration, that these days exaggeration and hyperbole is so rampant. Might be inspired by an article about some of the nice cozy drinks and cocktails for the cold winter coming up. Mulled wine and a modern hot toddy. And a hot toddy is tea, like an English breakfast tea or black loose leaf tea, a couple teaspoons of brown sugar, a medium-bodied rum, preferably gold, Amaro, such as Ramazzotti or Averna, and some fresh lemon juice. I want to try some hot toddy this winter. An obituary you might be inspired by, Ming Cho Lee. He's a designer of stages for dance, theater, opera. Pretty impressive, innovative guy. And some of his amazing creations with his stages. He once had a stage that was something about mountain climbers. So the whole stage was like being on the side of a mountain. But also he would do minimalism too. Very, very sparse design. Interesting fellow. You might be inspired by an article in the Wall Street Journal today called Finding Hope Whenever Everything Feels Hopeless. And it talked a lot about the benefits of hope, such as our physical and mental health, helping with anxiety and despair, protecting us from stress, giving us better coping skills, making us more resilient, improving problem-solving skills, lowering levels of burnout, developing stronger relationships, and better communication. Elie Wiesel, the Nobel laureate writer and Holocaust survivor, said that every word we speak or write matters. He says, think carefully about your words in terms of hope and in terms of your mindset. Use hopeful language like I can and we will and it's possible. And remember, hope begets hope. Might be inspired by an article in the Wall Street Journal about some horror movies that are worthy of checking out. They're older ones. One is from 1939, The Face at the Window. Another one is called The Ape with Boris Karloff in 1940. And one called Curse of the Undead from 1959. And that's a 80-minute mashup melding horror and a Western. Pretty intriguing. You may be inspired by an obituary in the Boston Globe about a guy named Daniel Menaker, who was a book editor. And he wrote a lot of books that he got a lot of acclaim for, but he was, I think, more well known for being an editor for other people, like the Bill Clinton campaign book, Primary Colors, a novel of politics. There's a fella, Bill Moore. He was a Catholic priest and abstract painter who passed away. And he used his paintings and art for spiritualism And he once said that his dedication to art was before his dedication to the priesthood. So he's got that kind of interesting connection between his roles. He was well versed in Van Halen and Bruce Springsteen and the counterculture art of Robert Crumb, R. Crumb, who that's one of my favorite documentaries. R. Crumb. No, it's just called Crumb. One of my podcasts, I talk about the documentary Crumb. And this painter, Bill Moore, kept a copy of R. Crumb's graphic novel interpretation of the Book of Genesis in his studio. You also may be inspired by an artist. He's a photographer, and he's on Instagram. His name is Mark Ostow, Ostow, and he did a showing of photography called Unmasked, a daily search for normal life in abnormal times. So he really focuses on life during the pandemic. So that's pretty interesting. He is compulsively shooting every day, everyone and everything. He starts 2 hours before sunset when the light is low in the sky, and he shoots about 500 to 1,000 images a day. He edits them up and puts them on Instagram. I'll have to check him out. Mark Ostow. He says that everything is accentuated. Serendipity abounds during these times of pandemic. A little charming story in the Boston Globe today about a couple that got married at Dunkin' Donuts. She was the staffer at Dunkin' Donuts, and he was a car salesman who always drove by the drive-thru every morning and got the same order: a large hot coffee, cream and sugar, and a sausage, egg, and cheese croissant. Whew, that's a lot of calories every day. Anyway, they started talking, and she gave him her card with his order, and then they started talking, and then they got married, of course, at Dunkin' Donuts, and she wore her uniform for Dunkin'. So, kind of a sweet tale from Dunkin' Donuts. Well, I hope those things inspired you today. Have a great one. If you are interested in learning more about what I do, life coaching and productivity expert work, check out my website, allthehatswewear.com, and there's a lot of info there. Excellent resources for you to follow to try to streamline your busy life. So check it out. Thanks.